Marcus had always lived a quiet life. He worked at a local garage fixing cars, and when he wasn't working, he stayed home watching old movies or reading books. He didn't go out much, and he didn't have a family of his own. But everything changed the day he got a call from social services. His sister had passed away. She had been a foster mother to 3 white children, Lily, Emma, and Jake. They were now without a home. The agency said there weren't many people willing to take all 3 kids together. If no one stepped up, they'd be split apart. Marcus didn't hesitate. He didn't ask how hard it would be. He didn't ask about the cost. He simply said, "Bring them to me." When the children arrived, they looked unsure and scared. Lily, the older daughter, wore a white shirt and jeans. Her long dark brown hair was tied in a ponytail. Emma, the younger girl, had on a white shirt with small blue dots and jeans. She had the same dark brown hair, just a little shorter. Jake, the youngest, had blonde hair. He wore a plain white shirt and jeans. He held on tightly to Emma's arm, refusing to let go. Marcus wore his usual white shirt tucked into black pants. His black hair was trimmed neat, and he tried to smile, though his heart was pounding. He wasn't sure if the kids would accept him. After all, he looked nothing like them. He showed them around the house. "This is your room," he said, opening the door to a freshly painted space with 3 beds, colorful blankets, and a shelf filled with books and toys he had picked up the day before. "You can decorate it however you want." They didn't say much. They just looked around quietly. Jake sat on the bed and stared at the wall. Emma played with the buttons on her shirt. Lily crossed her arms and didn't look at Marcus. That night, he made spaghetti for dinner. He placed the plates on the table and said, "I hope you like it. It's my special recipe." None of them responded. They ate slowly. No one made eye contact. The room was filled with silence. After dinner, Marcus cleaned up while the kids sat on the couch. He turned on a cartoon movie and sat nearby, hoping they'd relax. They didn't. When it was bedtime, Lily asked, "Do we have to stay here?" Marcus knelt down beside her. "I know it's new, and maybe strange, but I'm not going to let you be separated. You're family now, and I'm here for you." She didn't answer. She just looked away. Later that night, Marcus sat in his room. The house was quiet. He thought about the day and how hard it had been. Maybe they didn't want him. Maybe they missed their old home. Maybe they wished someone else had taken them in. Still, he didn't regret it. He looked at a photo on his nightstand, a picture of his sister smiling. "I promised you," he whispered. Marcus knew it would take time, but he had made a choice, and no matter how hard it got, he wasn't walking away. The next morning, he made pancakes and set the table again. When the kids came out, he smiled and said, "Good morning." Jake mumbled something. Emma nodded. Lily just sat down. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The next few weeks were harder than Marcus expected. He tried his best every day, but the kids kept their distance. Lily stayed quiet most of the time and often looked annoyed. Emma didn't talk much either, and Jake never smiled. It was like living with 3 strangers who didn't want to be there. In the mornings, Marcus made breakfast: toast, eggs, fruit. He placed the plates on the table and waited for them to come out of their rooms. They came, sat down, ate in silence, and left without a word. Marcus tried to start small conversations, but they gave short answers or ignored him completely. At school, things weren't going well either. Some of the kids noticed that Lily, Emma, and Jake were now living with a black man. The questions started almost immediately. "Is that your dad?" someone asked Emma at recess. "He's not our real dad," Emma replied. "He just helps around the house." The words weren't meant to hurt. She said them without thinking. But they spread fast. Soon other students were whispering, and even some parents gave strange looks when Marcus came to pick them up. One afternoon, the principal called Marcus in for a short meeting. "Just a heads up," she said kindly. "Some parents are asking questions. We're not judging, but you may want to talk to the kids about how they see your role." Marcus nodded. "Thanks, I'll talk to them." When he got home that evening, he found the kids sitting on the couch, watching TV. He stood in front of them. "Can we talk for a minute?" he asked. They looked up, unsure. "I heard some things today. Someone said I'm just the help." Emma lowered her head. Lily folded her arms. Jake looked confused. "I'm not mad," Marcus continued, "but I want to be clear. I didn't step in just to cook and clean. I chose you because I wanted to, because you matter." The room stayed quiet. No one responded. Later that night, Marcus lay awake in bed. He didn't know if the kids would ever feel like his own. Maybe they'd never see him as more than a stranger who took them in. But he wasn't going to stop trying. He started doing more small things. He helped with homework. He packed their lunches with notes like, "Have a great day," or "I believe in you." He showed up to Lily's school project presentation, clapping proudly even though she didn't smile once. He let them decorate their room however they wanted. Jake picked superhero posters. Emma wanted fairy lights around her bed. Lily asked for nothing, but Marcus noticed her spending more time in the room after he added a bookshelf filled with novels she liked. One Saturday, Marcus took them to the park. They sat on a bench eating ice cream. Jake finally giggled when Marcus pretended to drop his cone. Emma smiled. Lily rolled her eyes, but she didn't walk away. When they got home that evening, Jake tugged on Marcus's shirt and whispered, "Thanks." It was just one word, but to Marcus it meant everything. Maybe things weren't perfect yet. Maybe they wouldn't be for a long time. But he had hope now. A little bit of connection. A little bit of trust. And that was enough to keep going. On a quiet Monday evening, Marcus was in the kitchen washing dishes. The kids were in the living room, playing on their phones and watching TV. Things had been calm for a few days. Marcus thought maybe, just maybe, they were finally settling in. Emma was scrolling through her social media feed. She had posted a picture earlier that day. It was a photo of Marcus standing in the kitchen, wearing his white shirt and black pants, washing dishes after dinner. Her caption read, "Our helper doing his thing again, lol." To her, it was just a joke. She didn't mean anything bad by it, but the internet didn't see it that way. Within a few hours, the post started getting attention. People began commenting things like, "Why is he doing all the work? And is he the nanny or something?" Some even said, "Are those his kids?" And worse, "This doesn't look right." Emma didn't know what to do. She didn't expect it to go viral. She didn't expect strangers to say such mean things. But instead of telling Marcus, she stayed quiet. The next morning, one of Marcus's coworkers showed him the post at the garage. "Hey man, is this you?" he asked, holding up his phone. Marcus looked at the screen and felt a punch in the gut. He stared at the photo and read the comments. His chest tightened. He didn't know what hurt more, the words from strangers or the fact that Emma had posted it. He laughed it off at work, saying, "Kids and their phones, right?" But deep inside he was shaken. He kept thinking, is that how they see me? Just someone who helps around the house. When he got home that evening, the kids were at the table doing homework. Marcus didn't say anything about the post. He just walked to the kitchen and started cooking. His hands moved, but his mind was full of questions. During dinner, he glanced at Emma. She avoided his eyes. Jake was chatting about school, and Lily was picking at her food. After dinner, Marcus sat alone on the couch. The kids went to their rooms. He opened his phone and looked at the post again. It had hundreds of likes and dozens of comments now. The words felt like tiny cuts. He's not even related to them. Why would a black man take care of 3 white kids? This looks off. Marcus had always known people would talk, but seeing it spread like this, online, uncontrolled, was harder than he imagined. The next day at school, the whispers grew louder. Kids started asking Jake and Emma more questions. "Is that your servant? Why doesn't he look like you? Are you adopted or something?" Emma didn't know how to answer. She felt embarrassed, not because of Marcus, but because people kept making it a big deal. She started ignoring him more at home. Jake stayed quiet. Even Lily, who had slowly started warming up, became distant again. Marcus noticed the change. The laughter was gone. The quiet moments felt heavier. He sat in his room that night, thinking about what to do. He wanted to talk to them, to tell them how much they meant to him. But he didn't know if they'd even listen. He stared at the ceiling and whispered, "I'm trying. I just hope they see that." Outside his door, Lily stood quietly, holding a glass of water. She had come to ask for help with her school project, but stopped when she heard his voice. She didn't say anything. She just turned around and walked back to her room. The silence between them was starting to grow again. Marcus walked into the school office one morning after receiving a call from the principal. He was worried. He had never been called in before. The secretary gave him a polite smile and told him to wait. A few minutes later, the principal came out and invited him into her office. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Marcus," she said, closing the door behind him. Marcus sat down, his hands resting on his knees. "Is everything okay with the kids?" The principal gave a small sigh. "There's been some talk going around the school. Some parents are asking questions about your relationship with the children. And some students have been teasing Jake and Emma. They're saying things that aren't very kind." Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand. I'll speak with them. I'll also give you all the paperwork again if needed." "We know you're their legal guardian," the principal said quickly. "But sometimes people just don't understand." Marcus thanked her and left the office. He felt heavy walking out. He had done everything by the book: court papers, school forms, health records. But none of that seemed to matter when people didn't want to accept what they saw. At home, he tried to keep things normal. He cooked dinner, helped Jake with his math homework, and asked Emma about her science project. But the kids were quiet. Something had changed. Emma hardly spoke anymore. She kept her eyes on her phone or stared at her food. Jake avoided hugs and stopped asking Marcus to read to him at night. Lily had started calling him Mr. Marcus instead of Uncle. One night, Marcus was walking past the hallway when he heard voices from the girls' room. The door was slightly open. "Why can't we have a normal family?" Lily whispered. Emma replied softly, "Because everything is weird now. People are saying stuff." Marcus stopped in his tracks. He didn't go inside. He just stood there frozen, staring at the floor. He had never asked them to call him Dad. He had never pushed them to love him. All he had done was try to give them a stable home. But even that wasn't enough, not when the world outside kept pointing fingers. The next morning, Marcus dropped them off at school like always. The kids got out of the car without saying goodbye. He watched them walk away, their small backpacks bouncing as they rushed through the gate. None of them turned to wave. Back at home, he sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty chairs. He remembered the first week they had arrived. How quiet they were, how scared they looked. He thought things were getting better. Now it felt like everything was going backward. Marcus opened his phone and looked at the post again. It was still up, still getting comments, still full of people who didn't know the truth. He didn't blame Emma. She was just a kid. But he wished she understood the weight of her words. He wished they all did. Later that evening, Marcus sat outside on the porch. The sun was setting. The house was quiet. He could hear laughter from a neighbor's yard. He rested his head in his hands, feeling tired, not from work, but from holding it all in. Inside the house, Lily walked past the living room and peeked outside. She saw Marcus sitting alone, shoulders slumped, face hidden. For the first time, she wondered if he ever got lonely, if he ever cried when no one was looking. She didn't say anything. She just stood there watching before going back to her room. The walls between them were still up, and no one knew how to take them down. A few days passed, and the silence in the house grew louder. Meals were quiet. No one laughed at the dinner table. Marcus could feel the distance growing between him and the kids. He didn't know what more to do. He cooked, cleaned, helped with homework, and showed up to every school meeting. But the more he gave, the further they seemed to pull away. One evening after dinner, Marcus cleared the plates and took a deep breath. He looked at the 3 children sitting quietly at the table. He knew he had to say something. He couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. "Can we talk for a minute?" Marcus asked, wiping his hands on a towel. Emma looked down. Jake swung his feet under the chair. Lily folded her arms and waited. Marcus sat back down and looked at them carefully. "Do you all really think I'm just the help?" he asked softly. No one answered. Emma finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean it that way. It was just a joke." "But it hurt," Marcus replied. "Not because of what people online said. I can ignore strangers. But hearing it from you, that's different." Lily frowned. "That's just what everyone at school says. It's not our fault." "You're right," Marcus nodded. "It's not your fault what people say. But you do get to choose how you see me. I didn't have to take you in. No one made me. I chose to. Because you needed someone. And I wanted to be that person." The room stayed still. Jake looked at Marcus for a moment, then looked away again. Marcus continued, "I know I don't look like you. I know people stare. But I've been here every day. Every night. Not for a paycheck. Not to help around the house. I'm here because I care." His voice didn't rise. He didn't sound angry. But the weight in his words made the room feel heavy. Emma blinked fast, like she was trying not to cry. Lily didn't say anything, but her eyes softened. Jake reached for his fork again, just to keep his hands busy. "I don't expect you to call me Dad," Marcus added. "I don't even expect you to love me right away. But I need you to know that I'm not going anywhere. And I won't stop being here for you, no matter how hard this gets." He stood up and started picking up the plates. "You can think about what I said. I'll be in the kitchen if you need me." The kids stayed seated after he walked away. They didn't talk to each other. They didn't move for a long time. Later that night, as Marcus was washing the last dish, he heard footsteps behind him. It was Jake. He stood there quietly, holding a crayon drawing. "I made this," Jake said. He held it out with both hands. Marcus took the drawing. It was a simple picture, 4 stick figures, 3 small ones and 1 tall one in a white shirt and black pants. Above it, in crooked handwriting, were the words, "Our family." Marcus smiled gently. "Thanks, buddy." Jake didn't hug him. He didn't say anything else. But he stood next to Marcus until the dishes were done. Upstairs, Emma and Lily were looking at old photos on Emma's phone. She scrolled past the one she had posted weeks ago, the one that caused so much trouble. She stared at it for a moment, then quietly hit delete. No one said it out loud, but something had shifted that night. It wasn't everything, but it was something. The next morning, Marcus got up early and started making breakfast like usual. Pancakes, eggs, and orange juice. He tried to stay focused on cooking, but last night's conversation still played in his mind. He didn't know if his words had made a difference. He just hoped they had listened. When he placed the plates on the table, he saw something new. A folded piece of paper sitting in front of his chair. He picked it up and opened it slowly. It was a handwritten note. "We're sorry. Thank you for choosing us." Beneath the note was a small drawing. It showed 4 people standing together, Marcus in the middle, and the 3 kids holding his hands. All of them were smiling. Marcus smiled too. It wasn't big or loud, but it was real. When the kids came out of their rooms, they looked nervous. Lily was the first to speak. "We meant what we wrote," she said. "We're sorry for everything." Emma added, "I didn't think before posting that picture. I was wrong." Jake nodded. "You're not just the help. You're here." Marcus walked over and placed his hands gently on their shoulders. "Thank you. That means a lot." From that day, things started to change, slowly but clearly. Emma began helping him in the kitchen. She asked how to crack eggs and pour pancake batter. Sometimes they played music while cooking, and she even danced a little. Jake sat at the table every day, talking about his school drawings and making silly jokes. Lily didn't talk much, but she stayed close. She no longer called him Mr. Marcus. She called him Uncle again. On the weekend, Marcus took them to the bookstore. He told each of them to pick out one book they wanted. Lily chose a mystery novel, Emma picked a book about animals, and Jake picked a coloring book. They went to the park afterwards, sitting on a bench eating ice cream. This time they laughed when Marcus dropped a bit of his cone on his shirt. No one looked away. No one acted cold. They just enjoyed the moment. Marcus couldn't believe how much it meant to share something so small. A laugh, a smile, a day out together. At home that night, they watched a movie. Emma curled up on the couch next to Marcus, resting her head on his arm. Lily brought him a blanket without being asked. Jake fell asleep halfway through, and Marcus carried him to bed. As he tucked Jake in, Jake opened his eyes and mumbled, "Good night, Dad." Marcus froze for a second. He didn't say anything. He just smiled and pulled the blanket tighter around Jake. He went back downstairs and sat quietly for a while. The house felt different now. Not perfect, but warmer. Emma posted a new picture online that night. It was a photo of Marcus fixing her bike, taken at the park earlier. This time her caption said, "He's not the help. He's our hero." The post didn't go viral. It didn't get hundreds of likes, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that it was honest, and it came from her heart. For the first time in weeks, Marcus went to sleep feeling like he was finally seen, not just as someone who stepped in, but as someone who belonged. And for the kids, the house no longer felt like a stranger's place. It felt like home. The next week at school, things were different. Jake was drawing pictures at his desk when a boy from another class walked by. The boy pointed at his paper and said, "Is that your butler?" Jake looked up. "What?" "That guy you live with. The black one. Isn't he just someone helping around?" Jake felt his face turn hot. He stood up from his chair and said, "He's not the help. He's my dad." The teacher walked over and asked what was going on. Jake didn't say much, but later that day, the teacher called Marcus to tell them what happened. Marcus expected trouble, but instead, the teacher said, "Jake stood up for you." It was brave. Marcus felt something shift inside him. For weeks, he had been waiting for a moment like this. A moment when the kids didn't just accept him, but stood beside him. When Jake got home, Marcus gave him a high five. "Thanks for having my back today." Jake grinned. "You always have mine." Emma and Lily had their own moments too. At lunch, Emma overheard some girls making comments about her family. "Why is your dad black?" "That's not normal," one of them said. Emma turned and replied without hesitation. "Normal is someone who cares. He shows up every day. That's what a dad does." The girls didn't say anything after that. Lily wasn't one for big words, but she started defending Marcus in her own way. When people whispered or looked at her funny, she stared back. She didn't hide anymore. Marcus noticed the change at home too. The kids talked more, laughed more. They asked him questions about his day and helped with chores without being asked. One Friday night, Marcus made spaghetti again. This time, Emma helped stir the sauce. Jake set the table, and Lily grated cheese. When they sat down to eat, the table was full of smiles and noise. After dinner, Lily surprised Marcus with a small box. "We made something for you," she said. Marcus opened it slowly. Inside was a keychain made from plastic beads. It spelled out one word, "Dad." His eyes watered. "Thank you," he whispered. "You earned it," Emma said. The weekend came when they spent Saturday at the zoo. Jake held Marcus's hand the entire time. Emma took pictures and posted them online, not to impress anyone, but just to save the memory. Her caption read, "Family Day." Lily didn't post anything, but when Marcus sat beside her on a bench, she leaned her head on his shoulder. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I'm glad we stayed." Those words meant more to Marcus than anything else. It had taken time, tears, and effort, but now things were falling into place. On Sunday, they all cleaned the house together. Marcus played music, and they danced while sweeping floors and wiping windows. It wasn't perfect. Someone spilled soap. Jake dropped a bucket, but they laughed instead of getting mad. As they sat down for lunch, Emma looked around the table and said, "This feels right." Marcus nodded. "It does." The house was still small. The world outside still had its opinions, but inside these walls, they had built something strong. A real family. And they weren't letting anyone tear it down. Father's Day arrived on a warm Sunday morning. Marcus wasn't expecting anything. He got up early like always and started cooking breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, and fresh fruit. He smiled as the smell filled the house. He was placing plates on the table when he noticed the kids hadn't come out of their rooms yet. It was strange. They were usually up by now on weekends. He called out, "Breakfast is ready." But there was no answer. Before he could go check on them, the hallway door slowly opened. Jake walked out first, holding a small cake in his hands. Behind him were Emma and Lily, each carrying a handmade card. "Surprise," they all said at once. Marcus blinked in shock. "What's all this?" Emma placed the cake on the table. It was simple, with white frosting and blue letters that read, "You chose us. Now we choose you." Marcus sat down slowly, his eyes wide. Lily handed him her card. It had a drawing of the four of them standing under a big tree. Above them it said, "Our real family." Emma's card had a list of things she loved about him. "You never give up. You listen to us. You care even when we're not perfect." Jake's card had a picture of Marcus fixing his bike and a message, "Thanks for being my dad." Marcus looked at the three children. They stood in front of him, smiling shyly, waiting for him to say something. But he couldn't speak at first. His eyes were full of tears. He stood up and pulled them all into a hug. "You have no idea how much this means to me," he whispered. Emma said, "We know. We see it now. All of it." They sat down and had breakfast together, laughing and telling jokes. After eating, they spent the day playing board games and watching movies. They didn't go out or do anything fancy. But the house felt full of love, full of peace, full of something real. Later that evening, Marcus sat on the couch with all three kids curled up beside him. Jake rested on his lap, Emma leaned against his arm, and Lily sat beside him, holding the remote. The TV was on, but none of them were really watching. They were just enjoying the moment. Marcus thought back to how it all began. The awkward silence, the pain from that online post, the doubts, the questions, the cold stares from strangers. It had all led to this. The kids didn't care anymore what others thought. They didn't hide him or avoid questions. They were proud of him now, proud of what they had become together. Later, before bedtime, Lily came to his room. She stood in the doorway for a moment and said, "We were scared at first, but I'm glad we're here, with you." Marcus smiled. "Me too." He turned off the lights and went to bed that night with a full heart. The house was quiet, but not in the way it used to be. It was peaceful now. They weren't perfect. They still had hard days. People still stared sometimes. But none of that mattered anymore. Because this was a home. And this was a family, not by blood, but by choice. Marcus had chosen them. And now they had chosen him.